Okay, it is 6:30, so to be punctual, we will get a start, and hopefully lots more people will be joining in the next couple of minutes. I would like to start by welcoming everyone. Welcome to What It Takes to Ignite Social Change. This is the 8th event in the 23-24 What It Takes Alumni Speaker Series, organised by our Alumni Relations team. I am today's chair. My name is Zsófia Kunvári. I am the Enterprise Education Officer at the Westminster Enterprise Network here in the university. I am responsible for various initiatives at the university that aim to embed enterprise and entrepreneurship into the curriculum. A little bit of housekeeping before we get going with introductions and questions. This talk is being recorded. A recording will be available on the Alumni YouTube channel very soon. We will send you the link to the channel and some useful resources in a follow-up email after the event. Your cameras and microphones are automatically turned off, but the live chat is on. I am very sorry. I do have a cat who decided this is a time to gate crash. Hopefully she will come down in a moment. But to kind of continue with my housekeeping, like I said, your cameras and microphones are automatically turned off and the live chat is on. The group chat is there for you to ask questions to our speakers. We will collate your questions throughout the talk as well via the group chat, and I'll put these to the panel after the main discussion. And even though the live chat is on, the live recording, which ends up on YouTube, won't pick up any of your usernames or the chat, so don't worry about that at all. And please do bear with us if we experience any connection issues, but hopefully that will not be a problem, and my cat will hopefully also calm down in a minute. So the way today's session is going to go, we will cover the following. First, the panel will discuss the theme of social change and what it means to them. Secondly, we will then tap into what our panel has learned from their experiences and share some practical skills, tips and advice that they have learned, as well as challenges they have faced. We will then share some useful resources before a Q&A, which will be shared in the follow-up email sent to you all. Our third speaker, Carmen, will be running a little bit late, so we're expecting her at around 6:45-ish. We are going to do a bit longer of an introduction, so I will do a little bit of a longer introduction for her, just in case she can't do that herself. So, to our wonderful panelists. First, we have Nuria Ribalta, who completed an MA in Fashion Business Management in 2021. Nuria is the founder of The Dias, a London-based fashion brand turning art into wearable pieces responsibly. Next, we have Nicole Henworth, who is a Community Impact Manager at Tooting Works in South London. She graduated with an MA in International Business Management in 2016. Our final panelist, as I said, is Carmen Marlene Schlieser, who completed a study abroad semester at Westminster in 2022. She founded 720 Impact, which is a company that has consulted over 15 international startups. As part of her work, she empowers other female entrepreneurs through pro bono consulting. Carmen also advocates for equality and diversity as chair of the student philanthropy at the London Business School, where she's currently pursuing a master's in management. Before we jump into questions, I would like to ask our panelists, perhaps in order of introduction, to give us a very brief overview of their careers and journeys from studying at Westminster until now. Nuria, perhaps we could start with you.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Great, amazing. So, as you already said very well, I'm Nuria, and I studied fashion business management at Westminster. I have a background mainly in fashion. I studied design for my undergrad and then business management, so I know a little bit of everything, but all within like the fashion industry mainly. And right after I studied the masters, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do first, and I always had in my mind that I wanted to study my own business and that I wanted to do something that created a positive impact. So this is when the Dias came along. The idea came from me working in the industry and really liking fashion for the creativity that it was bringing me, but not really wanting to be part of the impact that it has on the people and the planet. So I really wanted to do something that made a little change on that and made the industry a little bit better, but without losing that creativity that made me want to work in fashion in the first place. So this is what the Dias is, a mix of creativity, art, fashion, and responsibility, sustainability. Sustainability can be a greenwashy way, so I use responsibility.
Thank you. How about you, Nicole?
Hi guys. So I did my master's in international business back in 2016. So I feel really old right now. I'm not gonna lie. But I was the only English student on my course. So it was really exciting to meet students from all over the world. And when I graduated, I too was like, what do I want to do? I thought I wanted to go into fashion retail. And then when I did some internships as part of my modules, I realized that it really wasn't for me. So like any young person that's graduated, I was like, okay, the bills need to get paid and I need to adult, whatever adulting is, so let me get into it. So I started off with my first job at an organization called Crabtree and Evelyn, which was basically like your granny's favorite brand or your mum's favorite brand. So they specialized in soaps and perfumes, and it was the world of like beauty meets lifestyle, which was really lovely to be part of. And I started off in the packaging and design department. Then they decided to do a complete rebrand and cater towards millennials, which was a really exciting experience because you never get to see a brand do a full 360. So then I joined the social media team, and that was really interesting for me. It was amazing to learn all the skills with social media, but I also realized you don't sleep because social media never sleeps. So I was part of that department, and I was part of that department during the pandemic. And that's when I was like, I don't know if this is for me, because we were on the influencer side, and I just kind of felt like when I shut my laptop at the end of the day, I was like, what have I achieved today? Like nothing really felt wholesome to me. So in the pandemic, I got made redundant, the whole team got made redundant, and the company went under. So it was a chance for like a fresh start for me. I was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune disorder, so your body basically attacks itself. So I took some time away, and it kind of made me reflect on everything. And I was like, my next steps need to be really important. So I went to a local organization called Business Launchpad, which is part of Tooting Works. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be job hunting. Can I just, use one of your seats because they do co-working? And the CEO was like, actually, we're recruiting. So I managed to start a part-time role there. It was like 2 days a week. I started then going up to 3 days a week, and it was just doing admin work, helping out with programs across the community. And that's been 3 years since. So since then, I then went to become the program and events coordinator, and then a role opened up for the community impact manager, which was really daunting, but I applied, worked really hard for it, and I got the role. So that's where I am now. And my role basically entails a whole lot of social impact. You're working with the community 24/7. I do all the reporting, which is a lot, but I do enjoy it. And then I manage 7 spaces within our community hub. So it's an exciting role. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey from trying to figure out adulting to I think I'm adulting right now.
Thank you so much. We also have Carmen in our midst now. Hi, Carmen. I have given a very brief overview of of you and your career, but it was very brief. So would you mind jumping in and just giving us, again, a very brief overview of your career and journey from studying at Westminster until now, if that's all right?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Sorry for running late. I just came out of a lecture, which I guess a lot of you can relate to. Yeah, I'm Carmen. I'm currently studying at London Business School, so right at the neighbor university. But before that, I was very fortunate to also study at Westminster. I did my exchange semester there. Prior to that, I worked a lot with startups. So I did consulting. I started my own startup in the retail industry and in the consulting industry. And I gradually sort of took on social impact within my career, for example, through pro bono consulting, but I now also help African startups, which is really great. I'm a late law scholar at LBS because I come from a low socioeconomic background myself, which means I'm here on a full scholarship, which is very privileged, but I therefore completely understand the perspective of why is social impact so important, and I've been very fortunate to also take that on at the university right now. For example, I'm part of the Student Philanthropy Council here, where we really think about how can we sort of build the future of the school. So yeah, really excited to dive into how can we incorporate social impact into our careers.
Thank you. I think let's jump into questions then, if you're ready. My first question is, and you kind of somewhat covered it as well, so I will give the opportunity to whichever one of you want to kind of start or add on to it. But my first question would be, what does social change mean to you personally, and why is it important? You've obviously covered bits and pieces of it, but if either of you want to kind of have a crack at that.
Yeah. Oh, I think Nicole just unmuted herself. So go ahead, Nicole.
I was like, are we all going to talk at the same time? So social impact and social change to me, from a personal level. So when I was growing up, I was like the only mixed race kid in my little area of Kent. And I moved to London because I wanted to see change. I wanted to see social change. And now, being in London, but also 10 years later, we live in a society which is so multicultural and there's lots of breakthroughs happening. So for me, social change means like providing opportunities to people who wouldn't otherwise get it. And within society, there are so many minorities within minorities who have amazing voices, amazing stories. And it's about putting them forward so that they can get heard, and also educating society whilst doing that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Carmen, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think I would very much like to build on to this point. Like, we have current systems, but they're not working quite well because we should have equal opportunities, but we just don't have them. And I already saw that in my own experience, right? There is only 8% of first generation graduates actually doing a master's. If you come from an academic family background, it's 45%. That's not because people are smarter or more talented or more intelligent. Literally just because you were born into a different family. And we have all of these issues that correlate a lot with unequal socioeconomic status. We have obviously things like racial discrimination, and we don't have a system that allows for equal opportunities. So what we can do through social impact is we can actually build a second system that kind of tries to, support the missing bits within the existing system. And that's why it's so important.
Thank you. Nuria, from the fashion aspect, is there something you think social change means to you?
Yes, I mean, I think I was going from a similar perspective, but just I wanted to, what I was going to say is that fashion sometimes can be out of the conversation when it comes to social change. It can be something that doesn't come to mind or is not seen as relevant from the social impact perspective, but it is the second most polluting industry in the planet, and only 2% of the garment workers that work within garment manufacturers get paid a living wage. So there is a huge problem of inequality and emissions and so on. So it is in my opinion, it does need to be part of the conversation, and it is something that we're all a part of, and we all want to buy new things. We all like to buy new things, so we need to have that change in our behavior when we make purchases, and that we need to have the choices in order to be able to make that change. So it's about, I think, starting the conversation, educating people, because I think the problem is that a lot of people are not aware of the problem, and shifting our behaviors, in my opinion.
Thank you. That's a really important sentiment. And as you have all mentioned organizations, what ways do you think businesses and corporations can contribute positively to social change? If you could give us an example or two that you have come across or you would like to see.
If I continue with with the kind of like fashion examples, I'm sorry, I'm going to only focus on like, but like that's my business and like my expertise. But I think from a fashion lens or like from a product-based business, basically, it's thinking about like how you're producing your the items that you're selling. So how are you managing the supply chain transparency and that everyone within the supply chain has fair wages and fair working environment. And also from the advertising perspectives, just ensuring that you're not using any misleading advertisement and that you're not promoting any sort of like unrealistic standards when it comes to diversity or body positivity and all of these things that fashion has been very responsible for. So yeah, businesses are part of our lives, so there's an opportunity for businesses to have very positive impacts.
Thank you. Carmen?
Yeah, I can very much build onto that. I think a lot already comes with just paying fair wages, because we're seeing that, if you give more financial resources to people, they will actually use them in a way that decreases some of this inequality, right? So, for example, imagine you're a parent and now you earn a little more. What will you do? You will invest it in the education of your kids. You will invest it in them being able to take on a hobby. You can finally afford a tutor for them. You will not just spend it on random things. And these things are essentially what leads to this wide socioeconomic gap that we're seeing and what leads to social inequality. It's all of these areas like, was I able to engage in a hobby? Was I able to, was there someone caring for my education? And because these things are so different between coming from a high socioeconomic background or low socioeconomic background, that's why we're seeing the differences in, what career status can you actually reach, what type of education can you engage in. Again, it's not about talent or intelligence. It's literally about what opportunities were you actually able to engage in. So honestly, I think paying very good wages is already a great start. You don't have to have fancy programs. I mean, it's great if you do more, but I think for a lot of companies that would already be really great.
Thank you very much. Is there something you'd like to add, Nicole?
Yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to corporations, the top word I think of is authenticity. Every organization has their own values, whether it be 3 values, 4 values, and at its core, employees have to represent that. So as an example, where I work, we're a business center. We look after 300 people. We're a Black-owned organization. 86% of our team are from all over the world. We've got Ghanaians, we've got Bangladeshis, we've got Trinis, we've got Jamaicans. Like it's so multicultural, but we represent our values, and there's that authenticity there. And sometimes if it's diversity and inclusion week, we kind of forget because we're just authentically ourselves, and we don't have to put on that persona. I think also when it comes to corporations, nowadays you have to support a social issue. Customers are so intelligent that it's not enough to just sell plant pots or just sell a service. You need to be supporting the community, helping the planet, and partnering with other non-for-profits in order to sort of amplify your cause.
I agree 100%. Thank you so much. It kind of adds on to this, but what do you think are some effective strategies for raising awareness about social issues and, for example, like mobilizing for like support for change? Because you mentioned fair wages, but what are the kind of things about raising awareness as well that it helps to mobilize people and stand behind a cause?
I think if we're starting on like an individual basis, the most important thing to mobilize, let's say, your own impact, in my opinion, is rather start small but be consistent. So you don't have to, engage in like 3 hours a week to have an effect in terms of social impact. But I've very much seen from my own journey, like for example, the mentoring I do for African startups, that's like a 1 hour to 3 hours a month commitment. But then you can do it over a long time. And the longer you do it, the more you will be able to communicate it to other people and be like, hey, by the way, this is what I'm doing. So I've seen that right now at LBS, because now I'm telling other people I'm doing that and they get interested, and now we have more people joining onto the program. So to sort of increase this mobility effect, I think one of the key things is don't overwhelm yourself, because it can be very overwhelming. A lot of social impact work is very emotionally draining. It can be a lot. And that's not the goal. But the goal is for you to, also feel rewarded, to widen your perspective. But then the longer you can do it, the more you can sort of have other people hop onto your train.
Thank you. Nuria, Nicole, would either of you like to say something?
Yeah, and I would say I 100% agree with Carmen. It's about starting the conversation, right? And like also like what I would add is like it's important to listen to what people have to say. Sometimes we're all very busy, so it's very important to make the message relevant to the people you're trying to talk to, I think.
Nicole, what do you think?
Could you just repeat the question, please? Because there was a little crackle and I was like, oh.
Of course. So the question was, what are some effective strategies for raising awareness about social issues and mobilizing support for change? So maybe a couple of strategies or
storytelling 100%. Like, it's one thing to just say sentences, but if you're talking about someone's experiences and you're adding a level of compassion and empathy, people can really, like, everyone's human, everyone's got a heart, everyone can understand that. So I think storytelling is such an important strategy. I'd also say social media, that is a power tool and a half. Sharing messages, joining groups, creating communities. Like, my social media, when I look at it, is just full of different types of communities that I care about and I want to be part of. And I also think a big strategy is volunteering. Like, if there's a social cause that you're interested in, like, go on the ground and go and see it for yourself and go and volunteer.
Thank you. My final question for this bracket, you kind of covered it, so I might kind of try to paraphrase. But the question would be, how can individuals contribute to social change in their own communities? And I think specifically we have a student audience here who are just kind of looking to make a difference. And what was that first step in your career that kind of launched you on this journey, or something small that people can start with and don't find it as daunting?
I can add on to that from what I just said. So I volunteer once a week at the local food bank, and that has been like life-changing for me, because I think it's one thing to read statistics and see things on the news, but when you're there in person and you're seeing it for yourself, it's just so eye-opening. So I would say to all students, like, go within your communities, and whether you want to do it faith-based, whether you want to do it age-based, or what you're interested in, go and find a community group. At 1 hour a week, just volunteer, and you will learn so much. You will hear so many stories, and you will be part of the change.
Thank you. Carmen?
Yeah, I agree, that's a really great way. And also sometimes it can be the things that you don't even consider are helpful for others. Like, maybe you're really good at a specific subject, or maybe you're a person who's very structured and organized. Like, these are all qualities that can help so much for people who never had the opportunity to learn that within their own household or within their own community. I would say try to be a bit creative, like maybe reach out to someone at Westminster. You could also, just talk to your friends and be like, hey, you know what, I was thinking about maybe tutoring some people. Let's just Google, like, find a school where, there are the majority of students will be from disadvantaged backgrounds. And honestly, if you just send them an email and you're like, hey, we're 3 people and we would like to tutor within maths, for example, I don't think that a teacher would just dismiss this email and be like, oh no, not for our students, and these things make such a difference, because not only do you provide like insights to knowledge, but you're also going to provide a perspective in like a whole set of areas. For example, what does it take to do a bachelor's degree or a master's degree? How can I get into university? Like, these things make such a difference, and you may not even be aware that these things are an issue and that other people have not been exposed to this knowledge or these qualities.
It's really well put. Nuria, is there something you would like to add to that?
So I think they've said it really, really well. But just to add, like, maybe from a business perspective, not so much from like an individual level, but if someone in the college is interested in starting their own business, like, think about how you can partner with people in your local community and work with people within your area, because there will be people around you that are incredible, and like sometimes we forget that like we have them right next to us, and we try and look for them like really, really far away. So try and look for the skills that you need within your business, closer within your communities, and like I would say make personal relationships with people, because once you listen to someone and like understand them on a personal level, you can make a great impact on someone's life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I would like to move on to kind of practical skills, tips and advice is something students can take away from today's session and kind of start, their own social impact journey. So my first question would be, were there any resources? So that could be, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, or courses that helped you learn more about how to impact society positively in your current role or in a previous role as well. Anything you would like to recommend students?
I can start like recommendations based on like if someone's interested in fashion. First thing, Fashion Revolution. It's a great resource to start. If you don't know much about what's happening within how clothes are produced and how garment manufacturers are treated all across the world, and how can you take actions, they are a great resource. They constantly put out reports. They have a weekly newsletter that I recommend you signing up to, because they will recommend a lot of articles on the topic and how you can get engaged. So it's very actionable as an individual to be able to be part of that. And then the books, there's a lot of books, but my favorites are Fashionopolis from Dana Thomas, and she also has a podcast called The Green Dream, where she invites people from all industries, not just fashion, but talks about how you can make an impact for the planet. And other books, How to Break Up with Fast Fashion, The World is on Fire, We're Still Buying Shoes, and just like the classic documentary if you're willing to get started and like want something quick and easy to watch, The True Cost. Also, although it's heartbroken, but it is like I think that one of the first documentaries that I watched on the topic, and it's really impactful.
Thank you. We're collecting all of this, by the way, and students will receive these recommendations as well. Carmen, you have unmuted, so would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can build onto the book list. I really love Poor Economics. It's by Banerjee and Dufflo. It's essentially helping you to understand that not all impact is creating positive impact. They have a really great example of how if you give away mosquito nets for free, actually they will be used less because the value that is associated with these nets decreases if people don't have to pay at least a minimum amount, which is so interesting because you would think, whatever we're doing, if it sounds good, it sure has a positive effect, but it's really important to understand how humans function and how, whatever impact you want to take up, you want to make sure it actually has a positive effect. So it's a very surprising book, but I found it incredibly insightful, and that would be the main thing I would recommend.
Thank you. Is there something for you, Nicole, that
I'm
helps
a
you
little bit
learn
of
more?
a documentary geek, so BBC Panorama, whenever they do that series, it comes on once a week, and it's on the most specific topics, but you learn so much. If you go on the Channel 4 YouTube channel, they've got loads of documentaries on social disparity, just amazing topics, and they're probably 45 minutes to an hour long, so really great watches. When it comes to books, because the social landscape is forever changing, I would go straight to social media. And just follow organizations that spark your interest in whatever sector you're interested in. So for me, I'm based in Southwest London, Merton, so I follow a little circle of Merton-based community organizations. Then I've gone out into Wandsworth, then Southwest London, and before you know it, you'll have lots of information coming in all across London in terms of social impact.
Thank you so much. In terms of the journey, you have mentioned it briefly before, but how did you end up in your current role? And if you would focus on the challenges or the hurdles, so once you've identified that you want to work in this area, what were the things that you were facing that maybe, you felt is a challenge?
I could start off and say imposter syndrome. We all get it. For me, I had to take that leap last year of going from an assistant and a junior role to a manager role, and I was I can't do this. I know how to be a manager. So we all have that imposter syndrome, and when I think for about I'm not that old, about 6 years, I was in an assistant role, and I was just so used to it. And I think for me, one of my biggest hurdles was going up to management. And the thing is, it's you just figure it out. When I look back, I have no clue how I learned the things with my role. I just did it. I just problem solve every day. No 2 days are the same. So yeah, I would probably say that's my biggest hurdle.
Thank you. Nuria? Oh, Carmen, sorry, you're unmuted. Nuria.
I mean, from my perspective, because I started my own business, there's so many challenges that come with starting a business, endless challenges. Challenge number one, and one that I still face today, it's the capital that it requires. So I would say that's the main barrier, especially when you're starting a product-based business. You require a lot of capital to continue, so that is something that has I would say slow the growth of my business, and it's something that I'm working towards improvement today. And from a social impact perspective, because I didn't want to compromise on the values of the business, it was really challenging, especially at the very beginning, to find the right partners, the right manufacturers and the right suppliers that really understood the mission and were not willing to compromise on that, on those values that the business had.
Thank you, Carmen.
Yeah, happy to build onto this entrepreneurship perspective because I also come from that background. For me, it was very much realizing the importance of networking. If you did not grow up in an environment or let's say higher socioeconomic family, you will not be aware of that, but so much is about networking and just talking to other people. And that was also so crucial in building my social impact, right? Why did I start mentoring startups? Because a friend of mine was actually doing that. And I would totally agree with the issue of imposter syndrome, I would have never sent them an email and be like, hey, by the way, I would make a great mentor. No, I did that because a friend of mine was doing it and she was encouraging me to actually start doing it as well, and sort of made that introduction. So whatever opportunities you have to like go out, meet new people, network, first, it's going to broaden your perspective, but second, it's also going to help you, you know, understand the opportunities that are out there. That was also very much the reason why I was even made aware of, like, for example, studying in the first place or taking a master's degree here, that there is something like a scholarship which supports you if you come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Like, you don't just Google everything and you don't just have the confidence to then put yourself out there. But for me, it was so helpful to like communicate with others and have others sort of show me the options that are out there.
Thank you. So in addition to fighting imposter syndrome and networking, is there another piece of advice that you would like to give to anyone thinking of exploring how to become a social entrepreneur, start their business, or a social impact professional? Is there anything else on top of those two examples? Or if I might have missed one example you mentioned and you would like to say it again?
My advice would be to not wait until you feel ready, to just start and like, start with the idea that you have and build from there. And you will learn from your mistake, and you will take your idea, and you will find your place within your mission. So don't wait until you feel fully ready. Nothing will be perfect ever. So you have to kind of like put your work out there before it feels like it's fully ready.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Carmen?
Yeah, maybe building onto this imposter syndrome idea, there's an amazing article which is called Why We Need to Stop Telling Women That They Have Imposter Syndrome, which essentially says, you know, it's not you as a woman who has imposter syndrome, but the environment that you're put into is not made for you, right? It's not made for a diverse people, but it's made for a very specific type of people. Sorry. And so for me, it was really important to sort of also realize, like, as a female entrepreneur, it's not going to be my skills that I lack or like my intelligence, but it's very much that the environment is not made for female entrepreneurs. In the past decade in the UK, we've had 10 Black female founders who received any kind of VC support. Like 10, that's an embarrassing number. So it's not going to be you or your business idea that is lacking something, but it's also valuable, I think, to realize like the environment is just not fair. And I think it's still very annoying, but it helps kind of not making it like this personal feeling of I'm not sufficient. Like, no, the environment is not sufficient, and kind of helps to, you know, navigate sort of failures or any negative experiences that you might experience. Like, why do you not receive any funding? It's not because your idea isn't great. It's probably because there are biases and other things that lead to you not receiving it. So it's going to take a lot of stamina and, you know, a lot of like trying. This goes back to networking. Try to find allies who are aware of these issues, who are trying to fight these issues. And again, I think it helps to like make you feel more positive or at least somewhat neutral about your experience, like understand the unfairness.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add, Nicole?
I was going to say that, like, it's okay to learn on the job. It's absolutely fine. We always think in order to take X role, I need to know everything about everything. You don't. Like today, my work sent me on a carbon emissions summit. Do I know everything about carbon emissions? Absolutely not. I have no clue. But what I can do is like learn a bit from it, come home tonight, maybe do some research, and I know a little bit more. So don't put that expectation upon yourself to know everything about everything. In your role, you'll know the basics, but then you'll build up your knowledge as you go along. And I think the second thing is, when I was in uni and I wanted to enter a certain industry, I used to think, oh my God, it's such a big industry, and how am I going to reach out to everybody? Knows everyone. Everybody knows everyone, whether it's fashion or it's sports or it's economics. It's all small communities within one another. And even today, I got an email from somebody who said, oh, I just spoke to your colleague. I didn't know you knew this person. So everyone's interconnected. So if you want to go into that sector, just do your research and go for it.
Thank you. And I would also like to add that the university has such a vast amount of resources for students to learn as well, and that's available for them, up to most things up to 3 years after you graduate as well. So do make use of the sessions around how to build your LinkedIn profile. It will be immensely helpful for networking, that you know how to put yourself out there. If you want to become an entrepreneur or learn how to start a business, there is entrepreneurial programs as well available. So do peruse what the university has on offer, because you might find something that you can kind of meet other students and learn a lot more as well. With that, I would like to thank our panelists for entertaining me in our kind of pre-made questions. And now we are ready to move on to questions that the students have posed in the chat. So the first one is, what are some current international social issues that you feel passionate about, and how would you initiate change regarding this? So we mentioned a lot about local things. Is there kind of an international social issue you feel passionate about? Whoever would like to start, grab the mic.
Yeah, for me, that's definitely taxation, because so much could be changed by taxing more fairly. Currently, not only have corporations that tax at a very low rate, but we also have vast differences in the opportunities that you have to pay lower taxes depending on your income. If you earn very little, you're going to be taxed very highly. If you earn a lot, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to not be taxed. It goes into things like, if you inherit money, you can just gift whatever company you own and you're not going to pay any tax. For example, in Germany, it's really, really low, and we don't really tax, having a lot of money or whatever assets. And we could do a lot by just, collecting more money, because it would be fair from a democratic viewpoint to enhance these taxes and sort of decrease these opportunities. So that's something I'm very passionate about, because Germany is one of those countries that has an insane problem with social mobility. I think only in the US it's actually worse, but that's because we have such a wide gap between the people who own a lot and the people who own very little. So yes, it's a wealthy country, but if you look at, who actually owns this wealth, it's very spread out. And that causes so many issues in our social system and how much support we have. And it goes back to the first point that I made in terms of, we pretend that there's equal opportunities, but actually we don't have equal opportunities. How far you get in your career is not going to depend on whether you're smart or intelligent or talented. It's going to depend on what's your socioeconomic status.
Thank you. Is there a point, Nicole and Nuria, that you would like to make as well in addition to that?
I can add to that. So for me personally, what's going on with Gaza, Palestine, so I've gone to some of the protests, and my partner, he's got very flexible working hours, whereas I don't. So he's actually taken it upon himself to volunteer for Oxfam, to collect money for the cause. So even within your families or within the close relationships you have, you can research and you can find ways. Again, like I said, even if it's 1 hour for the week, there's something that you can do to make some form of social impact.
Thank you. Nuria, is there something? you'd like to add?
I agree. I had the Gaza conflict as well in my mind, because it's just like something that it's everywhere at the moment, and it's horrible what's happening. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. Sorry.
And of course, fashion, which is as international as it gets anyway.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to look at it from a fashion perspective, then all the clothes that we're wearing probably are made somewhere, Bangladesh or Turkey. So make sure that you are aware of like if the garment workers are paid fairly and what kind of situations they're being put into to make the clothes that you're buying from like a very luxurious like store here. So thinking about all of those impacts that you have within the things that you purchase, not only fashion but everything really. Like what's cheap is not that cheap.
One thing I was going to add is I do think it's an international social issue, is gentrification. We're seeing it happen a lot in London, but it's happening all over the world. And so in terms of how do I initiate change, I don't know if any of you guys do this, but if ever I go out to eat, I always make sure it's from a family-run local restaurant. And I'll go out of my way to research. So rather than going to the bigger names, the organizations that everyone knows that are in every, city or every town, I'll try and go to a local business just so that, gentrification might be happening in that society and within that neighborhood, but at least I know my money is going into the pockets of the local people that have been there for a long time.
Thank you for all of you. The next question from the chat is, what are the main issues for female founders and entrepreneurs, or in social change projects in your case, Nicole, and in general to increase possible impact? I'm not necessarily sure what the second half of the question refers to, but so is there something you think is kind of female founder or specific, or for you as a woman in your field?
Yeah, for sure. Funding is a huge issue. I mean, I mentioned the 10 female Black founders who received funding in the past decade in the UK. Generally the statistics for female founders is, I think, still below 2% of all VC funding. And I also see that when I work with the African startups, the one thing they name is, hey, we have great ideas, we know how to run the business, we just don't have the financial resources. And so, of course, that's very much interconnected to who sits within the VC, who sort of decides how money is distributed. We also don't have that many women, for example, within venture capital, and that's a big funding source. So a lot of biases towards, for example, POC, women, under other genders, but then also it goes again into the direction of networking, right? If you are alike, it's easier for you to network with the other person. And that builds like a cycle of, okay, who then gets the money? It's not going to be the startup that has the best idea. It's often going to be those founders who sort of feel more comfortable with each other, and maybe they are alike, and it's going to be different qualities. I genuinely think that's one of the biggest things to realize. It's not about talent, it's not about intelligence or smartness. It's going to be about who do you know, how well are you in human interaction, how well are you, in building your network. That's going to be the main differentiator. There's a really great study where they looked at body language without sort of listening to any of the content of a business pitch, and they were able to predict who's going to win the business pitch solely by looking at body language. So that's really interesting to like get into it, and I also think really important again for you to realize it's not me, it's other things that make me perhaps less successful as an entrepreneur.
Thank you. Nuria?
Yeah, what I would add is that when it comes to female founders, I think that because it's such an issue, like Carmen said, like the percentages of like women that get VC funds are just ridiculous. I think there's more and more women speaking up and creating like funding exclusively for women, like female founders accelerators or female founders organizations, where it's all about kind of like supporting each other. So it's like joining those communities of women that maybe they've got that funding and they've been through that experiences, and like supporting each other and like being transparent with each other on our journeys, so that we can hopefully be the inspiration for another woman trying to start their business. I think that's kind of like on an individual level what you can do, being part of that female founder community.
Thank you. Is there a challenge you felt, Nicole, in your journey?
It's the same thread of there's not enough women. You know, even when it comes to like, we can only do so much, but there's people at the top that hold the power, that are the change makers. And I've seen it so many times when I'm hearing causes for women, and then I see the person that runs it at the top, and I'm like, but you're a man. Okay. So sometimes for me, I'm like, if it's about female issues, a female needs to be at the top, a female needs to be making those decisions. Where does the money go? You know, what organizations are supported? But I also feel like that there's a lack of opportunities for, say, South Asian women. I don't see enough South Asian women at the top. I don't see enough Black women at the top. So yeah, what I've started doing is finding communities where, you know, you'll be in a room with women that look like yourself, women that have the same of experience, similar social issues, or even career issues as yourself. So you will find those small pockets. Again, it's research, it's connecting with people, networking with people. And then once those networks get bigger, then you can start to make an even bigger impact in making that change.
Thank you, all of you. The next question is, social work can sometimes be very tiring and draining emotionally. I think one of you has already touched on that. What do you do to keep yourself going? Little tips or tricks or something that kind of gets you through a tough day?
I can start by saying, I mentioned at the beginning that I started off in the beauty sector, and when I left my job at the end of the day, I had nothing much to say. But one thing that keeps me going is when I'm walking home and walking to the tube station, I say to myself, Nicole, what's one, you know, mini piece of impact, or what's one positive thing that you've done for the day? And I might not have one thing, I might have three things. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, so you know what, you've done good today. And although it's draining, you end up sort of having that little smiley moment. And another thing that keeps me going is when I get home, girls, I don't know if you have this as well, but I have to have my shower, I need to switch off, I need to play my playlist, I need some me time. If I don't have 30 minutes of me time in the afternoon, I can't go to sleep. I need that time to just switch off and just be by myself. So it's important to have that balance as well.
The little rituals. Anything you'd like to add, Carmen, Nuria? Sorry.
And I think it's very easy to feel overwhelmed because there's so like broad the issues that we've been talking about today. So it's easy to feel like you don't know where to start. So it's like, I think about like breaking it down and thinking that like, yes, it can be overwhelming and it can seem like a big issue that you as an individual, it's very overwhelming to be trying to solve. But if you break it down and you measure the different steps, like Nicole was saying, like appreciating the little impacts that you're making on a daily basis, I think that really helps.
Yeah, completely agree. again, I was mentioning this earlier, but I would rather start at a slower pace and sort of do it for a longer time, because again, then you will be, 1 year from now, you will talk to someone in your master's degree, for example, and that will build onto that what you're doing already. But then also, I think because oftentimes the ones who are actually impacted by certain issues are also the ones who then start being proactive with certain issues, it can feel really unfair that, some people who should be contributing because maybe they're benefiting so much from the current system, they're not doing anything. And so kind of to check in with yourself regularly and, ask yourself, am I still okay? Do I feel overwhelmed? Because again, it's not the goal that you feel overwhelmed, but it's the goal that you're doing something at a capacity that sort of benefits everyone. Because again, it can feel really unfair when it's like you against the whole problem and you don't see, all of your peers sort of interacting in this impact as well. So check in regularly. There's absolutely no shame, and then being like, I need a month break or a 2-month break, like that's completely fine. You're not giving up or something. You're just, making sure that it's sustainable.
Thank you. I think it's also worth adding, because you've mentioned networking, all of you, so much. Your network is your support network as well. And it's worth keeping that in mind, that you're never alone in this. And that leads on to our next question, which is one of our audience members says that people often tell me that I am too young to do this. And is there anything you think they should do in those circumstances to kind of, well, fight back is the wrong way to say it, but kind of push back on that, because people are never too young, really.
You're never too young, never too young. The other day I had, to be fair, she was an older lady, but she was like, oh, you're too young to be a manager. And straight away I just wanted to say something, but I couldn't. But I think, people say that you're too young to do something. Take a moment and just think to yourself, well, why am I in the same room as you? Because, if you were too young, if you weren't capable, if you weren't, on the same wavelength, you wouldn't be in the same room as the other person. So just think about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Oftentimes it says a lot more about the person saying this than it says about you. Sometimes it's also great to just ask why and just wait for a response, because if they then say like, oh, because you don't know anything, you can probably prove them wrong, because actually you do know quite a lot. But honestly, sometimes it's also not worth to even engage in these conversations. Like, people should encourage you to do social impact. They shouldn't discourage you. So sometimes it's also the best to just be like, okay, and then just, go the other way and be like, you can have your opinion. That's fine. That's your opinion. I have a different view and I'm not gonna, be impacted by that. But I get that this can be very discouraging, because you're trying to do something positive and here comes someone sort of trying to have a negative impact. Chances are that person feels a little jealous, or, it's more something about this person rather than you.
Thank you. Is there something you'd like to add, Nuria, as well?
No, 100% agree with what you both said, but I just wanted to add that it has happened to me so many times. Like, I think I have a young looking face, and just people tell me that I'm really young all the time on a constant daily basis, and it's just I just take it on a humorous take at this point, and I just say oh yeah, I have a really good wrinkle cream. I just I'm really it's just yeah. So you will get that, and I think I will get that for a long time, because I will always look younger than I am. So take it in a funny, humorous way, I would say.
Thank you. Those are all very, very good ways of fighting it. I also have another question in the chat, which is, what are some of the strategies to encourage more females and women to join the industry where they are underrepresented? So, for example, construction is the example the audience member gives, and to make social change that can be felt in that, community or industry. I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts on those strategies.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I think it's very difficult to pin it down to strategies that are like within our power. I think a lot of it has to come from the companies. Like they have to recognize that the environment within construction, let's take this example, is probably very male dominated. So what can we do as a company to make it, more favorable for females? For example, they can use advertisement that targets more females, which puts more females within their funnel, and then in the interview process, they can then select, on a 50-50 basis, for example. That's like one strategy. I also think a lot comes from, if you work in construction, maybe just putting yourself out there a bit and become a role model. We have such a long history, specifically for women, where we were not able to take on certain professions, either because they were forbidden or because our work was sort of taken away from us. You have a lot of like scientists that weren't recognized for their work, and that leads to young girls not having these role models, because if you don't have a role model, it's very difficult to see yourself within this role. And so if you feel confident, I would say putting yourself out there is really great, because you can sort of become a role model for others. I think LinkedIn is a great example, just other social media channels. If you want to like reach a younger audience, that would be really great. But if I think back about my childhood, I did not have any female scientists that I was able to look up to. And I sometimes wonder, has that sort of led me to not be as interested in science? So I think you can sort of do some things yourself, but again, a lot of it has to come from the industry and the companies that work within this industry. But you can also create change by, just going up to, for example, a manager or a boss and try to like bring this topic into the conversation, not by risking like your reputation, but just, there may be a lot of willingness to actually make that happen, but they maybe just never thought about it themselves because they are very confident within the environment, perhaps.
I think storytelling is a massive strategy. If you were going to implement storytelling, you could have some videos of women who have joined the construction industry, and they're being vulnerable. They're talking about, I thought it was going to be like X, I thought it was going to be like Y, but actually this has been my experience, and this is how I've been able to grow. This is where I was when I started. This is where I am now. So I think through storytelling and through showing a level of vulnerability, you can sort of erase that stigma of women in construction. So I'd definitely try something like that. Can I ask, Betty, just drop in the group chat, are you in construction or are you looking to go into construction?
So Betty says they're a quantity surveyor. So already in the industry.
I was going to say, adding to what Carmen has said, then, you could start a social media page and, do reels or stories of like what your day to day is like, and, bring that reality so other women can be like, oh, she can do it, I can do it too.
I'd also add mentoring. The university has their own mentoring program. You can be a mentor for other students, and there's construction here at Westminster as well. So it's something where you can give back. So, look for those opportunities as well. Nuri, is there a strategy you have been thinking about while the others were talking?
I think Carmen has said it really well. I think we need more women role models. So definitely, if Beth is confident enough, we'll love to follow her journey on her new social media or however she does it.
Brilliant. This is for the audience. If you want to ask more questions, please do drop it in the chat. In the meantime, I have my own question, and then we'll see if anything else comes through the live chat. But I wanted to ask all of you, and it's okay if you don't have anything, but do either of you see any disruptive trends occurring that will enable social change? And if so, what? So you are all very well read and you're embedded in that environment. So whether that's, fashion or kind of community project, is there something that you see are coming up that might make a big difference? Any trends? Or any positive change or a negative change? That's an option as well.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see quotas, which is great, because essentially before we had female quotas, we had a male quota. That's how you can sort of put it. But we don't have other quotas, right? We don't have, for example, a socioeconomic quota. So how much diversity can we create through just having one dimension? Of course, that's a really great start, but we kind of need more in that perspective. I think companies are becoming more aware that they will be blamed for putting out a very, homogeneous image of who works at the company or who makes decisions and so on. And honestly, I'm happy if it's just for representative reasons and not for genuine values happening. That's still change. But sort of we're seeing something, but then who's not profiting from these sort of waves that we're seeing? I think that's important to keep taking this into account. Just because we now have women who sort of were the first maybe to profit of quotas, we kind of still need to stay active and extend this to other dimensions of diversity, such as socioeconomic diversity.
Thank you. Is there any other trends either of you are seeing?
I think from a fashion perspective, trend number one that it's incredible and that I'm super fascinated by is the amount of innovations that are coming up on textiles. So there's so many companies just working on recycling techniques or working on creating materials based on food waste or silk with orange peels, so many innovations that are amazing to see, and that comes from consumer demand. So like we mentioned at the very beginning, it's not going to be possible for businesses to avoid that transparency any longer because of consumers' demand. So there's definitely that trend of consumers demanding more transparency and responsibility from businesses, which is amazing to see. Still needs to grow, especially the way we think about consuming. I think it needs to slow down, and it's part of the problem. But there's definitely rise on demand. So great to see the change starting to happen.
I think from my side, from the community side of things, since the pandemic, there's a lot more grants that are open or that appeal towards well-being, that appeal towards the elderly, that appeal towards minority community groups. And that has been an amazing I don't want to call it a trend, but I guess it is a trend because since the pandemic, people have switched up the way they think. But it's been great for us because it means that as a community hub and as a community centre that looks after so many people, when we put, our applications through, we can be really specific. And we've always had a focal point on well-being and on, communities, especially minority communities. So it's almost like they finally found us in a way. And, we've been successful with some, unsuccessful with others, but it just means that, the change makers at the top are on the right path of, really helping those social issues.
Thank you so much. I think I might have one final question, which is going to be very simple. And the question is, what is the key value, or you can list up to 3, that you have in your life, especially that helps you to create the social impact you want to create, and what you keep in mind as you kind of start and end the day?
I can start. So mine would be empathy and compassion. I feel like you can't work on a people-facing role if you don't have those 2 things, the empathy and the compassion. And, no 2 days are the same in these jobs. You meet so many people from so many walks of life, and you just have to take that patience to, walk in their shoes and understand their story and see how best you can help them. So those would be mine.
Thank you. Nuria?
I think mine would be transparency, just because from a product-based business perspective, creating a product that is as responsible as possible is a constant evolving process, and it's a constant learning curve. So I think it's essential to stay authentic and to maintain the conversation with people in your community on how you're doing things and the impact that you're having. And if you make any mistakes, be open and honest about them, because you will make mistakes along the way. So transparency.
Thank you, Carmen?
Yeah, maybe to mention something different, because I think these were already really great values. For me, it's also creating equal opportunities. So very much this notion of, enabling everyone to be in this position to actually have a fair shot and an equal shot to succeed with whatever they're doing. I think it also plays a lot into living our democratic values, which essentially say, everyone should have the ability to participate equally, and we don't have that because we have such vast differences in who's able to participate, who's able to make decisions, who's able to fill in these roles that have a lot of power within corporations, within, extends up to politics. And we're really missing out on so much diversity and value from diverse decision making and diverse ideas and innovation, because our current ideas and so on and decisions come from a very homogeneous group. So sort of enabling everyone to at least be in this position to then have a fair shot to actually live this notion of, okay, everyone should have equal opportunities to participate and to do whatever they want to do.
Thank you. And someone in the audience also added patience, trust, and integrity, which are all incredibly good additions to those that you have already mentioned. So that was my final question for tonight. As part of my closing statements, I wanted to remind everyone in the audience to complete the survey that James has just dropped the link for in the chat. And it will also be included in the follow-up email to all guests. But if you're already here and you see the link, you might as well click on it and do it while it's all still fresh in your memory. The next and final event for this year's What It Takes series will be What It Takes to Impress in a New Job. So hopefully we'll see many of you there. It will take place on Thursday, the 21st of March at Portland Hall from 6:30 p.m. So for a change, it's going to be in person. And please keep a lookout on the homepage and in your inboxes for more details. I would like to thank our brilliant panelists, Nuria, Carmen, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming along today, sharing your experience, your thoughts and your insights. It has been brilliant listening to you all, and I hope you are taking something away from today's event as well. And that's it from us. Thank you very much. Anything you would like to share before we wrap up? No? Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, Nicole, sorry.
I just want to say thank you guys so much for this evening, and I wish you guys all best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Same. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Carmen?
Agree. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, drop me a message if you feel that I could support you on your journey. I'm happy to share any more, ideas. If any questions pop up when you're laying in bed at 2 a.m. Tonight. So yeah, it was really a pleasure. Thank you so much to the team also of Westminster to invite us today. That was really, really great, especially to speak of such an important topic.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Nuria, sorry.
Sorry, just want to add that I'm available for anyone if anyone needs support on their journey or anyone's interested in asking any further questions. And thank you so much for having me.
Final word of the day, networking. Please do get in touch, everyone. And yeah, have a great night, everyone. Thank you all for coming, and hope to see you at our final What It Takes event.